What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tanker, and welcome back to Axis and Allies Europe 1951. This is sort of you know, the culminating video for it all. Overall, I think the game went rather well. Um, both sides definitely were exploring strategies. Obviously, I think if all would go well, I think the U.S. pretty much had the winning strategy. Uh, Coming in here through the Middle East and starting to work their way north uh, towards Moscow, or at least the what we would call the nuclear ruins of Moscow. Um, and I mean, while taking Moscow is good for the Allies, I mean that's technically not one of the winning objectives to the game. Which that might be something I like. Using Operation Unthinkable as a base for this game was okay as far as the winning the winning objective in Operation Unthinkable for the Allies, which I believe I had talked about before, is basically that they have to liberate um, basically everything past this line. So basically, all of Eastern Europe, I mean, minus Yugoslavia, because they're technically Tito is neutral. Tito is neutral in the Hot War series too, though he does have some more leanings towards the west than he really does Stalin. But that's basically that. Although in Operation I think there is like a minor objective in order to win the game, which is that like the Allies only need to liberate, I think it's Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and like the Baltic states. Um, it was something to try just to keep much of the game the same, but I think um, I'm not sure. Just kind of looking at I mean, I think if anything, yeah, I'll keep that for now unless I come up with other things, or like that is the objective. That's that's one of the key objectives, or the other one being, say, the Allies can take and hold Moscow for a turn, then they also can win the game that way as well. Um, Another note, I mean, for the most part, like I said, the game went well. A lot of the strategies employed by both sides, whether it's the Soviets just trying to barrel west, again the US kind of coming down here to the south, or even NATO attempting to open fronts up here, all good strategies, and yet kind of like what you want from an Axis what you want from, say, an Axis and Allies game, or even any of like the global war games from historical board gaming. It all comes down to the dice. Like the dice are, you know, the dice are the determining factor as to whether or not you have a winning strategy. And I think that worked very well here. Again, there were several, I mean, early in the game I thought the Soviets were going to lose because they lost so much going into Germany, going into Italy. Like they were just losing and losing and losing from Allied counterattacks. But the Soviets were always able to pull themselves up, get the troops they needed, get them back, and seesaw back. That's what I really like. That's one of the aspects about this game that I think I've enjoyed the most, is that the game was just seesawing between the Allies pushing out and then the Soviets getting the numbers to push back. Um, there was one rule initially in Operation Unthinkable, and I think at first I was playing it, and then I stopped when I realized that I wasn't really abiding by that rule. And initially in the Operation Unthinkable game, you can't use enemy factories once you've captured them. However, and I can't remember if I was actually playing by that rule, but then I kind of realized partway through I wasn't playing by that because I had the Russians building out of Greece, had them building out of Istanbul. So that rule got tossed aside, and I think that rule, and I think I played that rule a little detrimentally because I think that stopped, because I was still in that mindset. I think that kept me from wanting to I think that kept me from actually putting Allied troops like down here in Hungary when they had captured that a couple times. But I'd have to go back through the footage and actually look at that. Another thing I am going to change, just because another thing that I am going to change is that like facilities don't get destroyed. So like your air base, naval base, and factories, like there's no destroying them anymore. It's just what I'm going to do is they're all going to have a max damage of 20, regardless of the territorial value. So everything just gets a max damage of 20, and once a factory gets basically obviously once a factory, say like the Rome factory, once it's damaged more than 3 hit points, it obviously is unusable. Let's see here, what else? Oh, one thing with nuclear weapons, and I'm pretty sure I had said this in the introduction, and then I forgot the rule and didn't play by it the rest of the time, is the fact that when you use nukes, whether it's a nuke from the random event or if the Allies use a nuke, is the fact that it does reduce the territorial value down by half. So, technically, in theory, NATO should only have been getting 2 IPC from West Germany after the 2 atomic bombs that the Russians had used against West Germany. There were also other territories in and around Russia that should have been depleted by half. Moscow should only have been they should have only been getting 3 IPC for Moscow now, and only being able to deploy 3 units in Moscow. So I accidentally played part of the nuclear rules wrong. And like I said, I'm pretty sure in my introduction with atomic bombs that was supposed to happen. Granted, the effects don't count, like they don't affect any of the territories at the beginning of the game where there were nukes in Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, that kind of stuff. Those nuclear effects wouldn't take, those don't actually take effect right away, or they don't. Those starting nukes do not reduce the territories. It's all the follow-ons. And so that was something that I realized that I was not playing by, so that is something that I actually really need to make note about, that I have to remember that territories need to be reduced by half, because I mean, with NATO losing 6 IPC from West Germany because it got nuked twice, I mean that could have done something for them. That could have actually aided the Soviets quite a bit with NATO losing 6 IPC per turn. Another thing too, coming down to some of the random events that also do involve nukes. Some of them would say like minus the income. Definitely for some of them, I think that's going to be permanent. Kind of like if you look at where is it? This one, the bombing of the war breaks out in Vietnam, and that's minus 10 for the remainder of the game. I think I'm gonna add minus 10 I'm gonna add minus whatever for the beginning of for the rest of the game, especially for ones say like the Western United States or Paris or even Moscow. Like some of these, like the minus 10 from the income is going to be permanent for the rest of the game. So that way, like, it also, like, there's more of an effect that these nukes actually have. And then obviously, again, like, with the nukes, it also would take down, take down your IPC for part of a turn. Though none of the nukes, like the one hitting the Western United States, or I think there's even one down here. Yes, one down here, the Eastern United States. Even if these two are nuked, it won't really affect the build queue for the U.S. It won't affect the build queue for the U.S. And then, what else did I have? I think the other note, and then so far, the other note is that I had mentioned early in the game that I might have had to adjust the setup. I don't know if I really need to. I know I had said that it seemed like NATO started out a little too strong in West Germany, and I'll admit, the research I was going off of, it was kind of like a map. Uh, Maybe if I can find it again, I can make it as a post. But it was a map dated from 1954 that was kind of showing the disposition of the NATO and Soviet militaries in Europe in 1954, and I kind of used that as a blueprint for the setup. But I did lower the numbers a little bit. But I kind of think even in 1951, I think I might have had everyone start out with too many, or at least have have NATO start out with too many troops. But like I said, I mean, this time around, I mean, the dice were working for both sides, and so the numbers didn't really matter. I mean, I was pretty surprised that the game actually went all the way. We were getting all the way to turn 15 before the game ended, when it seemed like by turn 5, like, the Russians were probably going to lose the game because they had just taken horrendous losses. But like I said, they just kept coming back. One other thing I'm probably thinking about changing, and this is coming from the book series, is that, and this is true to history, Greece and Turkey were actually not a part of NATO in 1951, if I recall, and I'd have to look it up in our history. I don't think Greece or Turkey actually joined NATO until 1953, maybe 1954. The reason why I had them as active participants right off the bat was because they did have troops. Greece and Turkey had combat troops in Korea at the time that the point of divergence happens. And so my idea was that because Greece and Turkey were fighting North Korea and fighting the communist Chinese, that Russia would see them as, enemies to be taken over or enemies to be fought against. But in the Hot Wars series by Harry Turtledove, there's no mention of Greece or Turkey at all. Basically all of the action of the war, at least in Europe in that book, is all centered around here in Germany and Eastern France, Poland, or Eastern France, Eastern Belgium, and Eastern Holland. Nothing also really happens up here in Norway, but Norway being one of the founding members of NATO, obviously they're going to be part of NATO. But I might do one more. Doing one more game, I'll probably do one more game with, or no, I think the next game I play, I'll probably have Greece and Turkey, have them be neutral, and then we'll kind of go from there and see if that makes a difference for them. See what that changes for the game as far as having these two just be neutrals with their own defensive armies. That is also going to be something else that I'm going to have to do. Really look into the neutral armies a little bit more, because I don't think I can really play it. Kind of like what I did with Iraq and Egypt. I don't think I can really do the Axis and Allies version where it's just infantry defending. I mean, these are even in 1951, both, a lot of these nations did have modern militaries. So there would be infantry, artillery, tanks, aircraft. So, and then like for like Turkey, maybe even a little bit of like Egypt, like there'd also be like little navies as well that you would have to fight too. But I probably wouldn't get that deep into the weeds as far as like also having like defensive navies and stuff. So yeah, I think, like I said, for next game it'll probably be I'll play with it as Greece and Turkey are also neutral in the game, and then the only way that they can come into the game is by them being attacked by either the Allies or the Soviets, and then just kind of draw up what the what the neutral armies defending the territory would be. Because I mean, it kind of worked with it just being like, okay, kind of like with Egypt, like Cairo or like Iraq was worth 2, Greece is worth 2, so that would be 4 units. Kind of working off of the Axis and Allies 1914 model, where it's like, okay, the territory is worth 2, so its defensive armies will be double that. So it would be 2 infantry and artillery and a tank, probably for Greece. And then for Turkey, I mean, it'd be probably a little bit different for what you'd have to fight through. Um, just kind of something like that. So I'll work on that. This game was kind of an experiment, but I really did like it. I really did like it. There wasn't a lot of rules that I needed to change when converting it from the Operation Unthinkable game. Which in of itself, I have playlists of the Operation Unthinkable game, and I think that was really fun too. So, if this map and the idea of a game based on Operation Unthinkable, and even playing this version, going into the future a little bit, into an alternate 1951, piques your interest, I would definitely say go to historicalboardgaming.com. I'll put a link in the description again for the where you can buy the where you can actually buy the game from. And Historical Board Gaming, they're a great company. I highly recommend them. I love their pieces. They got. This is a really nice Centurion tank model that they built. Obviously, these pieces don't come pre-painted. You actually have to paint them yourself. But again, there's a really nice Centurion model. They have all kinds of units spanning across all different eras of human history and war. Obviously, they have a lot of World War II pieces from all different kinds of nations, because one of their big games is Global War 1936, which is a widely expanded version of Axis and it is a more complex, expanded version of what you could consider Axis and Allies 1940. It is a big game. It's very detailed, very in depth, and I think I've played it online once, and even I was getting kind of lost and confused with some of it, because it is just such a big game to play. But yeah, Historical Board Gaming, they've got great pieces. They also have all different other games on there besides Operation Unthinkable and the Global War 1936. They have several other Global War games. They all look fun. I highly recommend them. Alright, so what happens next? Or what comes next? Well, I'm going to be going on vacation for a week. And so, while I am on vacation, I might take a little bit of time in the evenings when I have a break to kind of map out the different rule changes that I want to make with this version. And then we'll kind of see after that. My good friend Airsoft Commando, who I play with a lot of these games, he wants to go back and do another round of Global 1951. I think he wants to do it on the custom map that we built. I think he wants to play on that one. I have to double check with that. See which version of Global 1951 he wants to play with, whether it be on the global or custom global, or if he wants to do it on the global, the Axis and Allies Global 40 map. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the future. Also, again, from Historical Board Gaming, I picked up, I guess what the developers of it called Axis and Allies Korea, which I did purchase. I got the map file for it. I just got to get it printed. But one of the things I'm hoping for maybe in the future is to combine that Korea game, that Axis and Allies Korea game, with this, to make a like not quite a global 1951, but something a little bit more akin to the books, more akin to the Hot War series, where the only actual fighting is here in Europe and then over in Korea on the Korean Peninsula. And I think if I can get that map printed, I will. I'm just starting to come up with ideas of how we could integrate the two into a not quite a large scale 1951 game, more of like, I guess you would say more of a medium sized scale 1951 game. But so as for now, that is going to be it for this version of 1951. Just like I said, something I wanted to try out, and it actually turned out to go rather well. So that's going to be it. I hope you guys will continue to follow, share, and join me as we continue moving on through all spectrums of the wargaming stuff. So until then, guys, as always, take care.